Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, where we discuss everything in the world of Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
My name is Ben.
And we're back again for another action-packed show for you guys today, and it was a very wild week in baseball. A lot has happened in the first week. So, first thing, I want to talk about some of the big storylines that has occurred over the first week in baseball. And, of course, I know you guys might hate me for this, but we got to start off talking about Tim Tebow and his first full week in the minors.
You're starting with Tebow, really? Of all the things to start with, we're starting with Tebow.
Let's just get out of the way.
Yes, Tim Tebow hit another home run on Sunday, a 3-run homer.
Yeah.
He's 2 of 10 with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs.
Yeah, I know.
What else is there to talk about? Oh, he's doing great. Like, yippee. He's hitting 200 in Class A.
Hey, I gotta say, he's one home run shy of Michael Jordan's home run total with Double-A Birmingham in 94.
Well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there and say he'll pass that, because through literally like a handful of games, he's already 66% of the way there. So he's doing better than Jordan will, but I mean, he's selling tickets and everything, but other than that, like, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Congratulations.
No, but I do say that, Tim Tebow's the GOAT and all that, but I'm just saying that just for entertainment purposes. I've been saying this, that Tim Tebow belongs to the NFL, and, don't get me wrong, hitting a home run is impressive, but it is Class A ball. And he had, in this game for the Green Jackets, and actually in this series the past weekend, he went 3 for 13 with 5 RBIs, and he struck out 5 times and left 13 runners on base.
So he's either hitting a home run or striking out.
Yeah, he's either all or nothing.
I mean, so like, if he's getting overpowered by single-A pitchers, I mean, that kind of just tells you everything I need to know.
Well, remember his first spring training at bat with Rick Porcello, how that didn't go so well. Remember that?
I remember Max Scherzer overpowered him on 3 straight fastballs. I mean, it's just not. So it's fun. I'm sure he enjoys it. It's like his passion. He's talked about it, but I mean, I don't see this getting very far.
But on the serious note, let's analyze Tim Tebow's first full week in the minors. Sure, he's been exciting, but when you really think of him as a baseball player, he's not very good. I put in layman's terms, he's not. When you look at his first full week, he sells tickets, he sells merchandise, he gets a lot of publicity. But come on, 2 home runs, the internet went crazy.
It's Tebow, of course.
But when you look at him in action, he's either all or nothing, and the swing is just not there against Class A hitters. It's very inconsistent, just like how he was in the NFL as a quarterback. All right,
so enough of Tebow. Let's get to some serious.
I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to get that out of the way.
Let's get to some serious notes. Let's talk about some of the week observations we've seen so far in baseball, because this is technically the first week. We are a week and a half, I guess you can say, through the season now. 8, 9 games depending on teams. So now let's get into some weekly observations, Jeremiah. So what's the one thing you're taking away most from the opening week?
Probably injuries already. Injuries is one of the big ones. We talked about the Yankees as a potential wild card team, and they lost one of their baby bombers this past week.
Probably the biggest one, too.
Yeah, Gary Sanchez. He went on the DL with a bicep strain, so he's probably going to miss, I think, 4 to 6 weeks. That was the report. And it's tough because it was a very young squad. Aaron Judge has been phenomenal. Greg Bird has been pretty solid so far, taking over first base. So this is something that's very unfortunate for Yankees. And he's was originally placed on the 10-day DL, but it looks like that they just announced that he was silent for 4 weeks because of his bicep strain.
Do you obviously he is a catcher.
Yeah.
Do you feel like long term they need to move him away from that? Because you hear this talk all the time with Posey, which we're actually going to get to next because he's on the DL as well, about catchers. Like they did the thing with Harper. Like Harper was a catcher, move him to right field. Do you feel like they need to necessarily move him from a catcher so he has more of a longevity as a player for the Yankees? Because standing in that squat over time takes a toll on your body as opposed to maybe moving him to like a first base, for example. Do you feel like the Yankees probably need to do that? I mean, this is really early. It's his first full season. Getting an injury already a week into the season, I'm not going to say he's going to be injured forever and not going to have multiple injuries, but you never know.
Yeah, I would say not right now. I still think there's time for Gary Sanchez to be catcher. They did, I think the latest player to make that transition from catch to first base was Joe Mauer, I think for the Twins, because he was a catcher, and then I guess he had concussion problems, so they went and moved into first base. I don't think they have to right now because, they have Greg Bird there. Even though he has struggled since the start of the season, Greg Bird going 1 for 16 with 7 strikeouts.
That's Tebow-esque.
Maybe.
That's even worse.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But, okay, we're done talking about Tebow here. Remember, Greg Bird did lead the team with 8 home runs and a .451 batting average, but he's been one of the guys that looks like he has promise with this franchise. But it's just the beginning of the week, so I'm not going to throw really a lot of shade at Greg Bird here. But getting back to Gary Sanchez here, it's very unfortunate that they won't have him because he was one of their best plays last year in a short amount of time. Remember, we had that streak of a lot of home runs, and I think in 2 weeks or something like that. I think he had
he had 12.
I think he had 12 in 5 games, something like that.
No, it wasn't that quick.
It was similar though.
But yeah, he definitely was sort of expected to carry a lot of the load this year. The Yankees were sort of expected to really be on the up and up, and I thought they would as well. I mean, they're not doing terrible, but this is a big loss for 4 or 5 weeks, depending on how he comes back. And, of course, he is a catcher, so you have to worry about the biceps because he has to try and throw out runners and everything. So you want to get him fully up to speed. Maybe you start DHing him when he comes back a little bit, possibly. But
I can see that happening, yeah.
But, so it's going to be really interesting to see how the Yankees can sort of cope with this because, like you said, he was expected to really carry a lot of the load to start this season. Another catcher who found himself on the DL, a little bit of a different, the 7-day concussion protocol DL, is Giants catcher Buster Posey because on Monday, their home opener, Jeremiah, he took one straight to the noggin. I mean, took a 93-mile-per-hour fastball. He
did it by Tawan Walker of the Diamondbacks.
To the head. Forced him to leave the game. First inning, too, right away, which is really unfortunate.
And I'm watching the video right now, and he absolutely got drilled with this ball.
I mean, obviously not intentional. And Posey obviously had to leave the game, got checked out. Looks like they're putting him more on the DL with the 7-day concussion protocol DL, more for precautionary reasons. It looks like everything's going to be okay. Just make sure he has to go through some tests. I mean, you're seeing concussions all the time, especially with the NFL. But so he'll be fine. The Giants will just have to cope without him for a little bit. I would imagine you see a lot of Connor Gillespie, but other than that, they'll be fine. With the Giants, the issue right now is not necessarily Buster Posey, is that they simply just can't pitch right now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main things that we talked about last season when they were in the playoffs, and even late in the year when they were trying to make that playoff run. Bullpen is still a problem. The pitching is still kind of inconsistent. I don't know, the Giants, I think they went by 2-5 on the road trip that only included Diamondbacks, who are actually on a great start, by the way.
Yes, and top of the division is 7-2
yeah,
right now.
And I will talk about them later. And, the Padres, they didn't do so well in the beginning of the trip, so is there a lot of concern for the Giants? I wouldn't say necessarily because it is the beginning of the year. I think it's too early to overreact. But if this team is still struggling like in June, then I would start maybe having a lot of concerns about this team.
It's premature. We're a week and a half in.
Exactly. It's still premature. But, like I said, the bullpen's still a problem for that team.
Yeah, Melanton's obviously there. He got his save the other night, I should say. But it's the process of getting the ball to him. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily there, whether it be Derek Law or Hunter Strickland. It's not really formidable right now. I'll say that. It's not just one guy would solve everything and solve all their problems. It hasn't really worked out that way. Now, Jeremiah, real quick before we end the segment, we're going to get to something I'm really interested in, and you are as well, and that is Shohei Otani. Yes. I don't know who that is, but he's being called like the Japan version of Babe Ruth.
He is, he's known as the Babe Ruth of Japan. That's what people has calling him, and I think he's a very unique player right now. He's expected to make the transition to Major League Baseball in 2018. He's been making headlines in Japan.
Yes, he plays for the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters. Yeah. Whatever a ham fighter is, I don't know, but great name. I love it.
It's a great name, and I saw this story on him on 60 Minutes on Sunday. Great story, by the way. But man, this dude is a rock star in Japan. He is absolutely right. He's bigger than Bryce Harper is here. He's like one of the biggest athletes there in the country.
When you're looking at Otani, you of course compare him to like the Japan version of Babe Ruth, because not only is he a good hitter, but he's also a pitcher.
Yes.
So you're looking at Otani. Last season, he hit .322 with 22 home runs and 67 RBIs. Okay, so pretty good. But he also was 10-4 on the mound with an ERA of, where is it right here? An ERA of 1.86. No, wait, hold on. Of 2.24 last year. And he can throw it extremely fast. Yeah, he registered the fastest pitch in Japan last year at 102 miles per hour.
102. And the thing about Otani, though, is, we can talk about how great he's been in Japan, but the big story of the past week of Otani is that he's actually going to be sidelined 6 weeks because of a left thigh muscle strain. And, with him expecting to make the move to Major League Baseball in 2018, he's had injuries throughout his career in Japan, so that's another concern about me, in my opinion. That's a concern of him moving up to the big leagues. Injuries. Well,
for me, I think you have to sort of look at and find out, because when he goes to the major leagues, he's not going to be able to do what he's doing in Japan. What he's doing right now is he's basically a DH Monday through Friday, and then he takes like a couple of days off from hitting, and then he has his scheduled start like whenever. So he pitches basically once a week, hits every other day basically. In the major leagues, they're not going to allow him to do that. There's just simply going to be too much money invested in him. Like, think about all these, whether it be like Daisuke or Masahiro Tanaka, Yu Darvish, like all these guys, just simply to even talk to them costs you millions of dollars, let alone to even sign them.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a ton of money invested in Otani next year. So I think you have to figure out, are you going to make him a pitcher or are you going to make him a hitter? The ideal scenario, because right now he's a DH. So if you're looking at being a hitter, you're looking at American League, probably a DH. Maybe you have to train him to work in the outfield. He's like 6'3". He's got good size. He's pretty skinny, so you can maybe work him out as a right fielder, left fielder. But ideal scenario for me would be National League pitcher, because he can definitely pitch. We've seen that. He's got the velocity, and at the mound, he'd go up every time he's scheduled to start, and he'd be more feared than Bumgarner would be.
Exactly. I think the National League is a better spot for Otani for that reason. He can pitch, and he'll have 2 to 3 at-bats a game.
You could even put him in as possibly a pinch hitter.
Yeah, you can. He'll be someone of a utility player, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. You can even put him as a pinch hitter days that he's not pitching, and I do think that's very valuable in baseball these days. But when you compare him to all the other stars in Japan that made the move to Major League Baseball, you got most notably Ichiro's one of them. He's had a Hall of Fame career. You got Hideki Matsui, who's had a Hall of Fame career-esque. And you think of current pitchers now. You think of Daisuke, who unfortunately injuries kind of derailed his career.
A lot of the pitchers. Darvish has had injuries.
Tanaka has
injuries. The hitter's
injuries.
Not, though. So that's why you might want to maybe turn him into a hitter.
So maybe the best way for Otani, if he wants to do both, because that's what he said in this interview I watched on 60 Minutes. He did say he wants to do both. For him to do that, he'll have to go into the National League. And for him to just be a hitter, he has to go to American League. That's no other way. He's not going to pitch in American League and then hit at the same time.
No,
there's no way.
That wouldn't work.
But he is someone I'm really looking forward to in the majors. If he's not this year, next year, maybe 2019.
Yeah.
He is someone he's only 22 years old, so he has a lot of time to develop.
Probably looking at next year. So if you're looking nationally, you got to think of teams that have money. First and foremost, the Dodgers, possibly the Cubs. The Mets have a lot of money. They're not afraid to spend it. The Nationals, possibly. So there's some options there, but we'll have to wait and see. He is injured right now, which is unfortunate, but that's not a big deal.
He's had a lot of injuries. He didn't play in the World Baseball Classic because of ankle injuries, so that's another concern that MLB, Major League Baseball teams have to take into account is his injury history, and that's why his injury history is something why I don't think he will do both in the majors.
Maybe you could – I realize he's a starter, but maybe you could transition him into – a closer.
Maybe. I actually would like that, actually. Yeah.
Then he could maybe even do both. You know what I mean? Because there is a possibility there. And you look at his numbers, last year he threw 160 and 2/3 of an inning, and he had 196 strikeouts. That's a strikeout per 9 of 11. So he's got the numbers there, and if you're only throwing one inning, your strikeout per 9's going to go up. So he's got the velocity. Maybe you can turn him into like a Chapman who also swings the bat. Like, it could be interesting, too. We'll see. It'll be interesting to watch. We haven't seen anyone like this in a very long time.
Especially in this generation. And it hasn't happened, and especially in this millennium, actually. And exactly. So we haven't seen anyone like this, but he is someone we're going to keep our eye on here throughout the entire season. But, as of right now, he is sidelined for 6 weeks, so there's probably not going to be any stories relayed that are going to come out about him as he is nursing that thigh injury. All right, well, we're going to take our first break, and when we get back, we're going to discuss Forbes. And Forbes released their list of the most valuable franchises in baseball. So we're going to discuss that when we return to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back into the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. So now, Jeremiah, we're going to be talking about Forbes, of course, but we're going to start off by talking about some deals in baseball, some minor league deals with obviously the potential of guys moving up into the major leagues. So, first off, the Giants have a lot of issues in left field. They really haven't had anyone to solidify that position since really Barry Bonds retired. I mean, Angel Pagan's been there, hasn't really worked out. He's not the greatest fielder. This year, maybe trying some stuff with Jared Parker. But they've brought in Melvin Upton Jr., formerly B.J. Upton, and how you go from B.J. Upton to Melvin Upton is kind of beyond me, but
you really hate that, huh?
It just doesn't make any. I can see how you could go from like Byron Upton to like B.J. Upton, or like other way around, but like Melvin. That's like my name is Ben. I'm like my name is Ben, but I go by Steve. Like that it just wouldn't. There's no correlation there. But anyways, enough of Melvin Upton and B.J. Upton. So Melvin Upton Jr. now a member of the San Francisco Giants. It's a minor league deal, so. Obviously, probably start out Sacramento here, the AAA River Cats, and then I would say eventually gets called up into the major leagues to try and maybe throw his sort of shot there at left field because it hasn't really worked out. And we know what Melvin Upton Jr. is capable of. A really good player, had over 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases last season. But he has not necessarily been known to be the greatest teammate. Had a lot of off-the-field issues with teammates and a clubhouse guy that kind of isn't really the best one. And for a team like the Giants, a lot of these guys have been on multiple World Series runs. So they're a really solidified and really tight clubhouse. So now you're bringing in Melvin Upton Jr. It makes sense for his play on the field, but do you think he'll be a distraction?
When you look at his past, it being a lot of teammates and all, let's just look at the teams that he's been on. He hasn't been in a clubhouse like the Giants. The Giants, they got homegrown guys like Buster Posey, Brandon Crawford, Brandon Belt. These guys have won championships, and a lot of these guys have a good head on their shoulders. So I think if any team that's going to get along with Melvin Upton, formerly known as BJ Upton,
there you go,
would be the Giants. I do like it because you're signing a minor league deal, so he doesn't have to go to the majors right away. You got to see what he's got left in the tank, and then if he does end up pretty much, looks like he has a lot left to contribute, then I say why not move it up to the majors, because they have a major hole in the outfield. You got Hunter Pence there at right, you got Denard Span at center, left field. It's been kind of a problem. You got Jared Parker and a lot of other guys platooning there. So, and you got Gorkys Hernandez, which is my favorite name in the majors, by the way, Gorkys Hernandez. I like the move.
Mine is Yasmani Grandal.
That's your favorite name?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I like Gorkys because, Gorkys, who comes up with that name?
Gorkys.
Gorkys. I don't know. But anyways, BJ Upton, I do like this deal for the Giants.
Melvin Upton to you.
Oh, that's right. Melvin Upton. Sorry.
Melvin Upton Jr.
Melvin Upton Jr. Wow, man. How many names?
He's just adding everything.
How many names does he have?
Before soon he's going to be like Mel Upton Jr. Drop the V.
All right, but anyways, getting back to Mr. Melvin Upton Jr. here, I like this signing for the Giants. And I do think for any of the clubhouse that he will have success on will be this one. Because remember, last year with the Blue Jays and the Padres, he did have 20 home runs and 27 stolen bases. So that's a lot to contribute to a team that has been struggling a little bit to begin the year.
Yeah, but also the Padres traded him away. So they did. Obviously, they were rebuilding. So, but then the Blue Jays were like, I don't think we'll re-sign you. You know what I mean? So
he didn't make the opening day roster.
You know what I mean? So it's like there's something there. There's a reason for that. So we'll see. I will say this. I think it's a good move in the respect that it's low risk, high reward. It's a minor league deal. They're paying him nothing. When he gets up to the majors, it'll probably be a minimum deal and then a chance to really break onto the scene, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
kind of like Carlos Gomez did last year.
Yeah,
there's an option for that, but there's also an option for, okay, we'll look somewhere else. It didn't really work out.
And that worked out with Carlos Gomez. He actually became a legit contributor for the Rangers last year after being let go of the Houston Nationals, where he was just absolutely horrendous on that team, and it worked out better for him. Another player that signed a minor league contract was Ryan Howard, who formerly was a slugger for the Philadelphia Phillies. He signed a deal with the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves, we all know they need all the help they can get. So, Howard, he has reported to extended spring training, and I think he has joined AAA Gwinnett whenever that is over. So Howard's 37. He's been in the majors for 13 years with the Phillies, and he was the last remaining member of the Phillies 2008 World Series team last year. And he used a $10 million buyout in his contract this past offseason. And remember, he was an MVP in 2006. And we know when Ryan Howard was in his prime, he was one of the most feared hitters in the game. But, as he got older, he just didn't have any more.
I mean, I'm not really sure what the Braves are thinking with this. They must be really, really needing a surge of power.
I think this, honestly, they can use this in a variety of ways. Ryan Howard can be used as a designated hitter, a pinch hitter. It can maybe even be a backup for Freddie Freeman, because he's not a star anymore.
Yeah, and he was never one of the best fielders. Also,
he wasn't. So,
but
no.
It's with Howard his whole entire career. It's been home run or strikeout, and the last couple of years it's been strikeout because, like you say, he's getting a lot older, definitely past his prime, and now it's just a matter of he's just kind of one of those guys on a big contract, which the Phillies are definitely happy is done and over with and put behind them now. But it's one of those guys that signed a big deal, had some great seasons, and now it's like, oh, well, he's kind of just finished. That's basically what I interpret it as. So
I thought the American League would have been a better fit for Ryan
he could
Howard.
have been a DH, but with the Braves, he's, like you said, I'd say a pinch hitter, a utility guy, maybe a guy you throw in as a DH in interleague play, which happens more often than it had in the past few years. But so there's still some opportunities there, and injuries will arise, and you'll have a chance to obviously get your opportunity then. But I just don't really see this going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't either. I like the Melvin Upton Jr. deal a lot better than the Ryan Howard acquisition. It's just there's no reward there. Ryan Howard, he can't really do anything. Maybe he can make an impact off the bench as a pincher, designated hitter, as a backup to Freddie Freeman. But honestly, there's really nowhere where you can realistically play him.
No.
If he is active. Where are you going to play him? You can't put him in the field. You can. He was a terrible defender. Can't put him at first base. You got your franchise player there.
I would put him in center field. I mean, I think he could really
be quiet, Ben.
I'd rather put baseball cat at center field.
Oh my!
From the Marlins,
the baseball, from
the Marlins, that's like baseball cat.
Let's talk about that real quick with baseball cat before we get to the Forbes list.
Baseball cat, just a stray.
Rowdy
tabby,
cat, isn't it Rowdy cat?
It
now?
might be now for Miami. They could maybe use it, but we'll see. Just a baseball cat out there in outfield decided to just intervene in the game, and then he climbed the fence all as well, and he was having some fun with the flamingo and water design out there in left center. And hey, who knows?
Watch the Marlins are probably going to go on a 10-game winning streak now because of that.
I would say 9 cats, 9 lives. Maybe we'll work out there.
All right, 9 lives, and the Miami Marlins are they're actually they have a lot of bidders to be bought right now. I think Derek Jeter is
one of them.
Well, Derek Jeter is one of them. But speaking of money buying a team, Forbes actually released their list of pretty much of the rankings of the most worthy franchises, and what I mean by that. Know how much money they're worth. Yankees, of course, they topped the Forbes list.
And no surprise there.
Yeah, 3.7. And then when you go down the list, the Los Angeles Dodgers comes to a second place at 2.75. I think they were first place last year, weren't they?
I feel like the Yankees would always be first, but the team that's really on the rise is the Cubs. They're up to fourth this year. They're valued at $2.675 billion. The Red Sox at 3 and the Giants at 5. For me, what I take most away from this is that, according to last year, the average MLB team is now worth $1.54 billion, which is up 19%. So it's like, hey, the sport of baseball is actually growing. People are getting more invested into it. What do you think is the reason behind that?
Maybe I can probably see the technology, how it's accessible now. Because, there's a lot of out-of-market teams. They got that MLB At-Bat app where you can subscribe to it. Honestly, it may be, I think, when you get teams on the rise like the Cubs, it does help a lot because they are one of the most popular teams.
I think the World Series last year definitely had some effect.
I think it did. I think it really did. That baseball needed that series.
Yeah, definitely.
They needed that Game 7.
Huge for the game, and I think that's sort of carrying over into this year, of course, with the start of the season. Now people are always excited at the beginning. And I feel like what you mentioned, some of the relevant teams, the more popular teams like the Cubs, once they're getting better, it gets people more excited.
You got the Giants. They've been popular for a while, even going back to the Barry Bonds days. You got the Red Sox, who are always going to be popular around the nation. But, I think a lot of technology and the digital aspect of the game has kind of made it more accessible and popular as well.
Of course, last year, Rob Manfred trying to speed up the game. They have the pitch clock now for the in-between innings clock. And
they got rid of intentional walks.
Right, this year. We'll see how that is. We'll see how that has an effect this year. But I agree with it's kind of like a conglomeration of a lot of things. So it's definitely good. Up 19%, that's a lot. So
I got to tell you this, the 5 most valuable teams on this list have won 6 of the last 8 World Series.
That kind of tells you what it's all about there. So
yeah, it is.
Well, one team has won 3 of them. So
yeah, that's the Giants, and then the other one, the Cubs won last year. So I'm not surprised by the list. The Yankees are always going to be the top dog. Especially, they're kind of the best way I can describe the Yankees is they're probably the biggest brand in baseball. I think them, Chicago, not Chicago. Well, Chicago too. I think the Yankees, the Red Sox, you could put the Cubs on there now. They're not just teams, but they're brands that you see nationally. I can't really put the Giants as a brand there yet. I don't know how popular of a brand they are, but I do know they have a huge fan base here in California around the state. But, I do think the fact that the Yankees, the Red Sox, they're like a brand, I think that really helps them a lot. And, when you constantly have like these big brand teams, I think it kind of brings new fans in as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll see how this carries over. And obviously we have to wait till another year to get the values. But I'm sure it's going to continue to increase. It's really on the up and up. So I'm hoping that it keeps going on. And we'll have to see what happens. But we're going to take our last break, Jeremiah. And coming up next, we haven't got an official name for it yet, but we still have basically our top performers of the week and our worst performers of the week and our top team of the week.
Let's just call it the week that was.
Well, we kind of did that in the first segment.
Oh, okay. You know what? Fine. All right. Well,
why don't we call it like highs and lows or something? Like the high.
No, you know
player.
What? We'll just call it the players of the week. I don't know. No idea. I can't figure.
We'll figure it out. But anyways, yes, the people we thought played great this week, the people we thought played terrible, and the team, either good or bad, that really stood out this week. Well, all that's coming up next year at the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to Against the Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. And now is a time of the week where we discuss our studs, our duds, and the teams that we thought performed exceptionally well this week in baseball. So, what do you want to start? If you want to start with the duds, you want to start with the studs?
It's up to you, man. You surprised me.
Okay, how about this? We'll do team of the week. How about this?
Okay.
And my team of the week, I'm a little surprised about this team for a variety of reasons. I am surprised by their pitching. I'm not surprised by their lineup. When I look at this team in paper, very good lineup. But, the team of the week that I want to talk about is the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have gone off to a 7-2 start in matches, the best starts in franchise history. And don't get me wrong, their pitching hasn't been great, but they have been effective where they need to be. That lineup is cruising right now. They have guys. They have guys in the middle of this lineup that can hit the ball. You got Jake Lamb, Paul Goldschmidt. We all know about him. Even Brandon Dory. He's leading the team with average right now 357. Don't forget Yasmani Tomas as well is having a good start. This team is hitting really good to start off the year, and I do think that if their pitching can improve, if like Tawan Walker can improve, if Zach Greinke can get anywhere close to who he was 2 years ago, I think this team might be a legit contender for a wild card. But honestly, right now, this team's going to hit a cold spot. one of these stretches for a stretch. They're going to be cold for a stretch.
Maybe they won't.
That's impossible. But this team is going.
Possible.
All right, Kevin Garnett on the baseball podcast, huh?
Anything is possible.
But no, I do think that this team is very talented with the bat. I do think so. And this is my team of the week. I'm very impressed to see what this lineup is doing. And I do think that when fully healthy, this team is dangerous. And you got AJ Pollock back. He's made a huge contribution to this. Made a huge presence to this lineup.
Okay, I like it. And I'm going to go with another surprise team as well.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with the team that's currently in first of the NL Central. And it's not the Chicago Cubs. It's the Cincinnati Reds at 6-2. The Reds, I mean, we've talked about them on the preview. I've been really surprised on both sides. In pitching, they're second in team ERA. They have an ERA as a team of 2.54. Really, really fantastic. And they're also doing really good with the bat. They're sixth in average and second, or tied for second in home runs with 13. So they're getting it done offensively and with the pitching. Really, really surprising start from the Cincinnati Reds at 6-2 so far.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that, Arizona, they're in the they're in the top category in hitting, but Cincinnati, man, I've been really impressed by their pitching. I think we talked about this in our NL Central preview that this rotation, it looked like it was shaping up to be one of the worst. It's actually started out to be one of the best. I love what I'm seeing with this team, and it's amazing how the Cardinals and the Cubs are not even in first place to begin the year. Remember, we're just a week in. But yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing from the Cincinnati Reds there.
Definitely. Minnesota's been really well. I mean, they were a candidate. They're actually leading in ERA right now, which is kind of surprising. But let's go over players.
I do want to say Arizona leads the league in RBIs at 49.
There you go.
All
right. Let's talk about players now. We want to go with some studs or some duds?
Let's talk about our studs first.
Okay.
I got to go with the pitcher in New York, and it's not one of the Mets pitchers. It is Michael Pineda of the Yankees. He was throwing a no-hitter against Tampa Bay. He did lose it, I think, in the 7th or in the 8th inning. But, man, he was completely lights out. He pitched 7 2/3, only allowed 1 run, and he tossed 11 strikeouts. He didn't have a walk. And I think Michael Pineda, he's the thing about him, he's always inconsistent. When you look at his first start of the year against Tampa Bay, he only pitched 3.2 innings. That's not a lot. And he allowed 4 earned runs, and then he went through 6 strikeouts, and he comes back against the same team and almost no-hit this team. So for that, I'm going to give him some shine. And I think if he can stay consistent, he can actually be a huge presence for this Yankees teams because, Ben and I, we have talked about them being a legit wildcard contender this year.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then, the pitching for New York is always inconsistent. So I think if they just have that one solid pitcher that they can rely on, I think they can be fine. I kind of think Michael Pineda can be that guy, but, until I can see some consistency from him, I can't have him as that pitcher. But I liked what I saw from him this past week. All
right, so I'm going to go with an offensive player. I got to go Daniel Murphy of the Nationals. I mean, we know what he did last year. Tied for, I guess not tied, but second in the NL in hitting. Probably should have won it had LeMahieu not rested that last day. But he's on an absolute tear so far this season. He's got 17 hits in 36 at-bats. He's hitting .472, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, and he's currently on an 8-game hitting streak to start the season. So look out.
There we go. 8-game hitting streak to start out this season. I like watching Daniel Murphy play.
You have to like watching him.
He's fun to watch. Ever since that playoff series a couple years ago when he was with the Mets, he's just been a completely different player. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the game right now.
Yeah, he's so good at the bat. I mean, just phenomenal. Let's get to the duds though, Jeremiah.
All right. And it is a pitcher in the National League Central, and I'm not to say it. I don't think this pitcher has it anymore. And that is Adam Wainwright of the St. Louis Cardinals. I just don't think he has it anymore. And when you look at his first 2 starts of the year, he's pitched only 9 innings in 2 starts. That is not what you expect from Adam Wainwright. Against Chicago in his first start, he did pitch 5 innings, only allowed 2 earned runs, did throw 6 strikeouts, and a 2-1 loss. But, man, against the Nationals a couple days ago, he threw a complete blunder. He was just garbage out there. He only pitched 4 innings, allowed 11 hits, 5 earned runs. I don't think he has it anymore, man. It's tough.
It's tough seeing a good player declines like that.
He's 35 years old, so maybe age is getting to him. Remember, he did have injuries the past couple of years, but yeah, I don't think he's the same type of player. And then last year, he actually struggled as well. He had a 4.62 ERA the entire year, and when you look at it, he did have a 13-9 record, but he was very inconsistent last year. His whip is 1.40. That's the highest he's had in his career in a full season as a starter.
Yeah, that's definitely not a good. But you know what? I don't think it tops my dud of the week.
No, you have a pretty good one.
All right, so I'm going with Jeremy Guthrie of the Nationals. So he had his first start, I believe it was last Friday, against the Phillies. The Phillies had a historic 12-run first inning, which 10 of those runs were registered to Jeremy Guthrie. Guthrie went 2/3 of an inning, gave up 6 hits, 10 earned runs, and 4 walks. He's got an ERA right now of 135. Not to mention, 3 days ago, on his birthday, I might add, the Nationals designated him for assignment. Wow. I don't think it could get worse than that.
Wow. All right. R.I.P. to Jeremy Guthrie's career.
RIP to Jeremy. 38 years old, been on a multitude of teams, whether it be from Cleveland to Baltimore to Kansas City. But, I mean, bye-bye, Jeremy. He literally served up batting practice.
Yeah. And, okay, when I got the notification of the Phillies scoring 12 runs, I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I wonder who they pitched against.
And none of those hits he gave up were home runs. It was all... none of them are going out of the park. All just hits.
Yeah, and they made the Phillies look like an all-star team. Well, at least Guthrie did. They only have like probably 2 players that can be an all-star. That's Maikel Franco and Ajubo Herrera. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot of firepower in that Phillies lineup. They scored 12 runs in the first inning.
Yes, and 10 were registered to Guthrie in 2/3 of an inning.
He didn't even make it out of 1 inning.
No. His ERA is 135. Of course it would go down.
Who are the 2 players he got out?
That I'm not sure. They batted around, God, I don't even know how many times. They had to have batted around at least twice.
I think probably twice. It looks like they batted like 3 times.
Because, I mean, you're giving up 6 hits, so 2 runs. That means he gives up, and he walked 4 batters, so that's 12 hitters at least. I mean, that's not good. And then he gets designated for assignment on his birthday.
Yeah, and the Nationals actually lost that game. Well, of course they did because they allowed 12 runs the first inning. They lost that game 17-3, and that was the most runs that the Phillies have scored in the first inning in franchise history. So, the Phillies currently 3-5. So they're. Ever since that game, I think they lost twice after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really going too well for the Nats. But anyways, real quick before we end the show, Jeremiah, we do have a couple of matinee games going on right now. The Rays have a 2-0 lead over the Yankees in the first inning thanks to a 2-run home run by Ricky Weeks. And then we have the Twins against the Tigers, and Brian Dozier with a leadoff home run has the Twins ahead 1-0 in the bottom of the first.
I love watching the Twins this year. They got off to a really great start. I remember in our AL Central that they were going to be one of the exciting teams this year. They have lived up to that. They've been really exciting. I think if their pitching improves, they can be really good.
Yeah, well, it's off to a good start. Let's see if they can keep it up for the whole 162-game season.
Yeah, hopefully. But, that's going to do it for the show today. We will be back next week to discuss any type of news that happens over the week of baseball, and there's probably going to be a lot to talk about. We had a lot to talk about today.
Definitely.
The fact that we fit it into like a sub-45-minute show is amazing, in my opinion. But, yeah, we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. Ben and I will be back next Wednesday. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Ben.
And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Going to Meet Concepts Baseball Podcast. You guys have a great week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.